So my name is Steve Masur. I am a partner at Masur Griffiths Avador, which is a law firm that is heavily involved in the technology space for many years and in the crypto space since around 2016, 17, and which corresponds with when we started the firm around 2016. So we are not as old school as other firms in the space, but we're certainly excited about it and have done a lot of work in the crypto space and in the NFT space. And NFTs are what we're going to be talking about today. And I'm really excited about introducing the rest of our panel. It's a great panel for this topic, and one from whom you will hear differing opinions about NFTs, smarter opinions, more high level, more, biting, more insightful than you might get from the rest of the market of people who may or may not understand what's going on here. So with that, I would like to introduce you to Mark Lurie. Mark, why don't you give them a brief introduction of your background?
Thanks, and thanks for having all of us here. So I've been in the art and technology space for a little over around 10 years now. I started out in venture capital with focus on online marketplaces. And then in 2012, I founded an online marketplace for art and collectibles, like a high-end eBay, with experts who would vet every item. Sold that in 2016. And then in 2018, created a blockchain-based title registry for art and collectibles called Codex. It's used pretty widely in the traditional art market. If you buy an item at auction in the US, you may get a certificate of authenticity that's anchored on the blockchain. There's about 500,000 records created. And that was an early NFT protocol. So I've kind of been at the intersection of art and technology and blockchain for a while now, and very interested to see everything that's happening in NFTs and the parallels to the traditional art market.
Excellent, beautiful. Colborn, why don't you go ahead and describe your role in the NFT market?
Yeah, absolutely. I was a long time blockchain investor, always kind of, keeping my ear to the ground, searching for the new thing. Was very interested in virtual lands as an NFT originally, and then fell into the NFT art market and really married these two concepts together to found the Museum of Crypto Art, which is a virtual immersive experience in, first and foremost virtual reality, but also web-based as well. That begins to, provide context, use case, explain artist stories for digital artworks in native digital environments. And this is really just, beginning to open up this next frontier of what is broadly referred to as the metaverse, and, kind of pushing along these transhuman narratives as we begin to adapt and adjust life to be more and more digital.
Thank you. And we've been really sped along that road by the pandemic, which really, where we had all of these Zoom-like technologies for many years before the pandemic, nobody was really given a compelling kick in the butt to get on board. And then the pandemic provided us with that. I think that's part of the NFT story as well. Shivani, please go ahead and describe your background and part of what you want to talk about today.
Sure. So I grew up in Silicon Valley, but I focused on art history and biochemistry in college. And the multidisciplinary background I was blessed to have basically took me into blockchain and crypto art. I was fascinated by the idea of people using a new technology to not just explore their creative expression, but make living, respectable, high integrity jobs. And I thought that was so amazing because throughout history, artists have struggled to find compensation, to find collectors directly without middlemen. So this whole movement just fascinated me. And as part of the Museum of Crypto Art, which I joined about 8 months ago, I wanted to understand what are the art movements at play, who are the people coming into this new metaverse, what are they bringing, what should we be bringing, and especially when big tech, which I'm surrounded by here, comes in, how do we maintain this idea of an arts and cultured forward society into VR and the metaverse? So yeah.
Excellent. That's perfect, because I think a big part of our conversation will be to discuss the kind of the connection between crypto art, NFTs, which is really what crypto art has kind of evolved into, and the traditional art world. So that's going to be a big topic, I think. Jerry Casali, please introduce yourself. This is one of the founders of the band Devo. Devo is at the beginning of both the punk rock and the new wave movements. Very important person in music history, very smart person, and somebody who is also very involved in the NFT trade.
Yeah, I'm one of the content providers that Shivani was referring to. I mean, obviously, as a creative person, you're drawn to this like people that run to the oasis in the desert, you know. But when you get there, oftentimes it's just one more mirage. So, you know, I'm trying to navigate this NFT thing and watch it shake down to what really works and what doesn't, because certainly any artist, it tries to, you know, like hold on to some kind of percentage of their IP. They don't want it just taken away free. You know, they don't want to watch everybody else make money and they make none. So the NFT possibility is there for once, unlike the regular art world and the regular music world, to have a direct connection where you continue to participate in the creations, in the money from the creations that you manage to get in the marketplace. So I'm here to find out more, actually.
Okay, well, good. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and your history, not only as a music artist, but in other artistic pursuits?
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, I kind of, Devo was kind of just a continuation of something that I was doing at Kent State University as an art student. And then after the killings at Kent State, it kind of radicalized me. And the next thing I knew, I was creating Devo music, because I'd started de-evolutionary art. So I started Devo music with Mark Mothersbaugh.
Were you there for the killings?
Oh, sure. I was a member of SDS, and I was in the midst of it. I was closer to the guardsmen than the students who were wounded and killed. My theory there was the guardsmen were the same age as us, like 19 years old, and they shot over our heads because they could see our faces.
Yeah.
So I think they didn't have the, whatever it takes, the killer instinct to actually kill people in front of them that they could recognize that were the same age as them.
Right.
So they shot further back. Anyway, it set me on a long journey. And of course we were innovative and we were polarizing and we were always adapting the latest technology. I mean, I started directing videos when there were no such thing as music videos. And, and I started using actual video rather than film, and compositing with blue screen and green screen when nobody was doing that, and so on. And, but always, there was, the artist was always being ripped off. The accountability from record companies was shaky at best. Yeah. And then we finally reached the implosion point in the early 2000s where selling music was not profitable. That was just a loss leader. Bands made all their money elsewhere, like touring, merchandising. So Devo lucked out in that sense because we had a brand, as people like to call it now, and suddenly
What
everybody
does
wanted
Devo
our
stand for?
de-evolution. Yeah, that's what I saw happening in the world, and that's really what my friends and I believed that was happening. My academic friends and I would spend hours discussing this, and what we saw was a world that wasn't evolving, but a culture that was de-evolving, and that people were, repeating things like "Don't ask why, drink Bud Dry." In other words, there wasn't more thought; there was less thought, and there was less critical thinking, and people were less able to employ logic in making decisions, like how do they receive information, uh, how do they process it. Well, what we saw is that people were just eating disinformation and believing that as much as any real information, and couldn't critically make the differentiation.
And
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 that's
that
only,
that and that seems to have moved to the present, right? I mean,
that's
we
only
saw a lot of that.
accelerated. Yeah, it's only accelerated. It started somewhere around Nixonian times. And I think with the decimation of the public education system and the misuse of technology, what we have now is the sheep, in Animal Farm reading the rules on the side of the barn, and then they don't remember what the rules said 2 days ago, and they think that the new rules said exactly that in the past. So that's where we're at. Don't eat the apples. The apples are bad for us. We don't want the apples.
And okay, and that brings us also to the NFT space and to the crypto space generally. Something that people, when they think about cryptocurrencies, they think about trading Bitcoin and trading altcoins up and down and making money on the arbitrage of that. Whereas a big part of, I think, the crypto space is giving people self-expression, um, making transparent, for example, ownership of intellectual property rights, which would help artists.
Right.
And
I mean,
and
that's the lure. That's the sales job right there.
it is. That's the lure. And NFTs are specifically designed to be unique digital objects. So a unique digital object really is the opposite of a photo of Devo that's flying around the internet, not being monetized by anyone. This is
right.
a unique object. And one such unique object is behind me now. It is a image which is flying around the internet of a piece of art that was sold for $69 million. Anybody can look at it as a free GIF on the internet, but the actual unique GIF, someone was willing to pay $69 million for. Colborn, why? Why would anyone pay $69 million for a gift?
You're giving me the impossible question to start. um, I guess it comes down to Beeple as an artist and kind of what he signifies in the space.
Beeple is the one who made this piece of art.
Beeple is the creator of the art. It is a collage of 5,000 images where he, over the past 13 years, has created one every day. So it is the summation of a broad body of work. The work itself is very pop, internet friendly. It allowed him to garner a following of millions of people on Instagram. He was, a leading digital artist in allowing the open source of his 3D models. So he had a lot of respect amongst that community. It was almost a perfect storm event. I can't speak, directly to what motivated the buyer to pay such a large sum, but he was a previous collector of 20 of the works, right, which he did fractionalize into a token. And for the NFT community, it was really a announcement statement, right? It was a statement to the art world that, we're here. What we say is important to us, and what we give value is, what we will be defining our arts and culture, not you, right? So in this parallel story of NFTs as an art market in parallel to a traditional art market, it really is kind of about reclaiming some of the power to drive our own cultural narrative.
Got it. So this answers the why, I think, for a lot of people in the NFT space. People hear about NFTs, they want to jump in. Artists want to sell their NFTs and make money. And now you're saying this is why people buy NFTs, is as a almost as a self-expression to say, we are here and we're proud. This is how we define ourselves. This is our culture. Take a look. I was willing to spend a large amount of money for this piece of digital art, and essentially almost you should too.
Yeah, value got created in a new way. I mean, value used to be created by, taste-making galleries in New York and London, and now value's been willed into existence in a new way here. And Beeple, to his credit, has real talent in this space, and that's what everybody throwing everything at the wall with NFTs forgets, is that there's only one Warhol, right? And there's only one Beeple. And they should take note of that and remember there's marketing art, and then there's art. There's the people who create the art. And Beeple is special.
So it's almost a kind of a mission statement for the new world. In that you can do this directly. You do not have to go through the art markets and the stealing art dealers of New York and Barcelona and Miami. You do not have to be chosen by someone else. If you can create your own audience for this art, then that's your audience, and you can sell them the art directly using the blockchain, more or less.
Although it's important to distinguish a few things, because Beeple's piece that sold for 69 million sold through Christie's, and so it's not clear that just because it's an NFT, it means that it's divorced from the traditional way the art market works.
Right.
There's a and so there's a few questions at play. When you ask, why does someone pay 69 million for a GIF or a JPEG? You can kind of think, well, why would this art be valuable, right? And I think that's independent of medium, right? There's certain subcultures and certain movements and certain art historical, reasons that certain art becomes valuable, whether it's the Mona Lisa or Jackson Pollock or, or a Beeple. And I think that's independent of, the medium or the technology. What's interesting here about NFTs is that now you can treat digital art and this new medium the same way you've treated other art streams of art or types of art, and that's because it can be scarce in the same way that, like, a photograph can have multiple prints, and each one of those can be valuable even though they're perfect replicas of each other. In the same way, an NFT can be scarce, and so you create you can create a commercial world out of the medium. And so why would someone pay $69 million for a GIF? Well, they pay that much for lots of different art, but now they can provably buy the unique GIF that started it, or that that Beeple attested to in his provenance. And that's why they would pay that much for a GIF, no different from a photograph. But there's a whole other conversation about the business of art and how blockchain enables you to create a provenance, create value in it, and transact in a new and different way, which is interesting itself.
So this GIF that's behind me may be similar to the Banksy self-destructing piece of art, also sold at auction.
Yeah.
So somebody was willing to pay for it, and that's a part of the art.
Yes.
And
Uh,
can you help us, Mark? This was my next question, is what you referenced, is how do NFTs relate to and how does crypto relate to the actual art trade? And what are your sort of predictions on how is this going to come together, if it does come together, with the traditional art trade? And I might ask Colburn the same question after you're finished.
I think it's there's a danger of it falling into the uh, same types of behaviors and supply chain and market structure that traditional art has, right? In traditional art, you have gallerists and dealers who will represent artists, foster their placement, foster provenance, build a following, partner with the artist to create a brand, and a lot of the manufacture of that value is based on opacity and and lack of transparency and creating a brand and a track record. At first glance, a lot of the things we say are very new about NFTs are not necessarily. There are you need to get a following, you need fans, you need promotion, you need a means of distribution, to a platform to promote and sell your piece. You need commercial infrastructure. Those things are not different than the normal art market. And so I think you need to think really hard about what's new about blockchain. Transparency, uh, you know, um, tracking provenance perfectly, seeing the financial instrumentation. And you had to be, I think, really clever about, okay, how do those things help us recreate a market structure that empowers artists in a different way than it's been done before? And that's actually not clear, and it's a lot more nuanced than I think a lot of people seem. It's one reason why, we've created a foundation for art and blockchain to try to explore this and recreate the market structure in a way that helps artists first. But it's not straightforward and it's not intuitive, and I don't certainly have the answers.
Right. It's a chance to rewrite the way the business works.
It's a chance.
Well,
Colburn,
unlikely that it would rewrite the way the business works. I mean, the business works because it works. Business is not going to let itself not work. So this makes
like
total
water
sense.
not flowing argument.
Yeah, totally what Mark's saying totally makes sense. Now, the one difference being, and this is a question as much as a statement, what is the reality of the artist continuing to participate in profit when these NFTs are exchanged? Unlike the art market, the young artist sells a piece for $3,000. 10 years later, it sells for $3 million. He doesn't get a cut of that. But in the NFT market, supposedly the artist does. How does it work?
Well, I'll start with that answer to that. You could, in your smart contract embedded in the NFT, give the artist a chunk of any future sales of that NFT. However, it would be baked into the market price then, if the seller knows that they will not make 100% of the sale of that piece of art. But like Mark said, it's a chance, so we should do it. We should, stick one in the market and see what happens.
Right. And in that case, what's interesting is, in theory, you could do that in the traditional art market. You could have a contract that goes along with a piece of art that an artist creates, saying anytime this is sold, part of the purchase price has to go back to the artist. The thing is, you can't even track sales. It's opaque. So there's no way to enforce that. Right. And so in this case, we have a chance to build things like that in, which do work for the benefit of the artist, and then enforce those. And that can change the structure of the art market in really cool ways if we can get it to be a standard, if we experiment with different ways of doing it. And that is super exciting.
Colburn, any comments?
Yeah, a lot. If we can think of the traditional art market as this, highest evolved form of, people doing, business, and it's not, but the NFT market is really just this primordial soup. right? And you have all of these different elements coming together, mixing, rebounding at lightning speed, and just kind of seeing what shoots up and out. And at the end of the day, it's just a ground for experimentation. And it becomes like this place, I think, where artists get to feel free again, free to create, free to collaborate, free to distribute, free to even take on, roles that were traditionally outsourced to galleries. They can be their own entrepreneur. They can be in charge of their marketing. Nobody is telling them what or how to create. And that at its core is very interesting. But as the what we're constantly dealing with in this space is like the ideal and then the actors, right? And everybody wants that 10% secondary sale for the creatives, but the majority of the marketplace participants are like trained crypto traders, and there's always a way to go around this. So as a community, like, how do we develop a standard that is going to enforce this and is going to kind of like push out and call out collectors who are going around this mechanism for their own financial benefit?
Got it. Excellent.
And I think I would just add, there's an actual art movement here which reflects the culture of crypto. Now that culture is like pretty edge, kind of anarchist, potentially libertarian. And that in itself, I think, is a story that I would agree with you, Mark, that honestly NFTs have reflected the art market in the ways that we don't want it to, meaning market manipulation, galleries coming in, et cetera, et cetera. But what has remained is that culture. And that is a piece of the puzzle with this idea of blockchain that I think is really important. And I think that will be a beacon if it is told in the right way.
Hey, Shivani, can you tell us more, just informationally, more about the market manipulation and about how things have played out?
Yeah, I mean, I think kind of based on what Colburn was talking about, there are this world, the collectors a lot are traders, right? And speculation drives profit, and that's the intention. And I not want to shame anyone for looking for profit. But that being said, these are human beings and artists who are putting their work out there. And some of the work that I think, has the North Star of the art world based on number of followers on Instagram, et cetera, that is kind of the artists that a lot of collectors are getting behind, because if they can put out the noise about, these one or two artists that they think are really amazing, then the market will come behind them. And that pattern matching of like basically Instagram influencer, except in this world, and NFTs to follow, I think that has led to a lot of manipulation around like what is the art to look at, just based on who's saying you should look at it. And that's honestly what happens in the art world too. So it's not that surprising. But yeah.
And technically, I mean, just to have a little focus, little legal sidebar here. Technically, the regulatory regime that controls the art market around the world is the same regulatory regime that would control NFTs. Are there any others? It's a hard question. Lawyers are struggling with it. We're trying to, we get the question quite often, do the money transmission rules apply? Do the SEC rules apply? Well, the Federal Trade Commission rules probably do apply. We're all kind of scratching our heads over it. It's not that hard. It's not as hard as crypto currencies. However, it's not answered. So to Mark's point, it's an opportunity. It's a chance for this to be, possibly regulated and in a little bit different way than the art world, but it is the art world. To Jerry's point, it's it's all part of the art world. So it's a new corner. It's a new method.
I mean, you know, what's really interesting here is that, you know, generally the art and the token are two separate things, right?
Yeah.
The token is really only pointing to, you know, a place where this artwork is hosted, and anybody can go and take it for free. You don't pay for the art, you pay really for that creator's signature, right? Or just this token, this idea of a token that they created that kind of stands in parallel with the art. So it is a totally new product. It's very undefined. And, you know, the way I always think of it is it's, you know, the art is free, but you pay for somebody signifying that this is like an act of creation. And the token embodies like that act of creation.
Got it. That's great. So instead of filing at the Copyright Office or writing it down on a ledger at the county assessor's office, this is directly act of creation that we file on the blockchain as a way of looking at it. And we've designated that it's non-fungible. We've used a technology architecture that is non-fungible. So this is a thing that gets traded, not a fungible asset.
Does that make it easier in this realm then to go after people who infringe on your copyright, you know, steal your IP? Like traditionally forever, artists and musicians find their works being used in unauthorized ways, copyright infringement. You know, somebody just takes a song and uses it how they want without making a license deal. And you're playing whack-a-mole all the time. We find Devo red hats and Devo pompadour hairdos that were, you know, fraudulent, being sold on websites. And we have to get a lawyer and play whack-a-mole and stop them, cease and desist, never really get anything for it. Now in this realm, is it easier to track people down, stop them, and you know, find them?
No.
Nope.
Significantly more difficult.
More difficult,
I would say.
I mean, there's a ledger that says who owns the image, but people who steal it, people who copy it, people who use it in their own work, same problem.
There is a little bit of a difference in that in the art market, you can fake more easily. There's good actors and there's bad actors. This is, you know, bad actors can still use the content in other authorized ways. The issue is in the normal world, the traditional art world, they can often pretend that they have done it the right way, that they've gotten your permission, that they have remitted payments, that this is the real item. They can fake provenance. Whereas on the blockchain, it's much harder to fake their ownership and their rights. It doesn't mean they can't. It doesn't mean people have to care about that, right? But if they're a good actor, they can go and find out for themselves whether this thing is legitimately owned or whether the person using it has gotten the right title. And so that's a little bit of a difference. It doesn't necessarily help prevent bad actors, but it helps give good actors the ability to know if they're acting and to act well.
Yeah, and I think I would add, I mean, like you can call out people on the internet like pretty easily. There is like a transparency in just that calling outness, which you wouldn't get, you know, potentially in the real. But I was just thinking about like how Elvis is like entirely based off of like some of the most treasured like Black songs, right? Like no one called him out because they couldn't, right? I mean, could he like, and he's, I mean, those questions around like what happens when you have a world where everyone sees everyone and everyone can talk to everyone, I think this adds to that and potentially is more beneficial because you can do that in one place.
Interesting. I mean, I think it would be part of the NFT. Again, you know, we if you're doing it right, you're putting all of the publishing information right in the smart contract of the NFT.
Right.
And then we can go back to the origin, and you know, hopefully we'll also, all the changes to that contract will be put there. So it actually could be really beneficial in music publishing, because music publishing seems like the entire business is about whether or not payments have to be made according to whether or not there is proof of provenance.
Right. Right.
So it seems like it could be really helpful
Okay.
in that context.
Okay.
But there's there's a need for education, right? To your point, if you know an NFT is created and it has one license that says you can use this for some limited use, or you have to remit funds upon transfer to the creator. You know, if some of that you can program in, so it naturally enforces. But if they're confused about it, they might still go use it for purposes that you didn't want them to, and that's not in the license that you stated in the, at the creation of
Well,
the
I think
NFT.
that's
And so
exactly what would
there's an
happen.
education,
Yeah.
an education problem that I think we all have, and I think this panel is a good part of that.
Jerry, what about Satisfaction? This is a song that Devo covered very famously, a very innovative cover of that song. The Rolling Stones played the song. Is it their song, or?
Yes.
I mean, I know of Ike played the song. Ike sang the song too.
Well, you know, people used to take intellectual property seriously. We had to go sit down with Mick Jagger and play him our version to even be allowed to put it on the Warner Brothers record. And
so this is
the
clearly a
stipulation,
Rolling Stone song.
yeah, and the stipulation was, of course, is that they would retain all the publishing. All you have, you own the master recording. That's your version. That's it. They maintain all the publishing.
Got it. So how well has Devo done on Satisfaction?
You know, monetarily, not that well, but I think culturally, it was a huge, huge boost. People revert to that over and over to as an example of de-evolution in reality. Like, okay, what is Devo music like? Well, look how they deconstructed this Rolling Stones hit. That tells you everything you need to know. It's proof. You know, it's like it's proof, right?
Right.
Proof of concept right there. Yeah.
Right. So if it had been recorded as an NFT back in, when did they record that? 72, I guess, maybe 69, 68.
The Rolling Stones, that was their hit in 1966.
6. Got it. Well, I should have remembered that. That's my birth year. But
Oh,
I just out myself. But the okay, so let's say they recorded it in 1966 and filed an NFT then. Ike Turner made a recording of it. I think Tina Turner made a recording of it. Devo made a recording of it. Many people made a recording of it. Devo made a recording of it that was a deconstructed recording. So theoretically, it would all go back to that original NFT, and theoretically you could have layers on top of that, or how it arcs off into a different type of thing with the Devo deconstructed version, which probably has a different, overlapping sort of Venn diagram, but a different listenership than necessarily the Rolling Stones would have. So it's fascinating to me, as applied to NFTs, how that would work over time. I was just trying to deconstruct it backwards to see how that would have worked in an NFT.
Yeah. Well, there we go. The whole thing, that's why I was here to learn and listen. It's a Pandora's box once again. It's like the new thing that's going to be just like every other old thing any moment now.
Well, let's talk about that a bit. So, Colborn, who are trading these? I mean, you say it's crypto traders. Is it the same crypto traders that were trading coins in 2018? Who is it?
I mean, look, generally it's just it's momentum traders that are treating artist names like ICO projects in 2017, right? They start to see that somebody gets some hype, they see one collector come in, they start like outbidding each other, and then they're self-fulfilling prophecies until they're not, right? So we see these very rapid rises for artists, and then suddenly, there's no secondary market, or they release a piece and there's no bidders. And this, like in the traditional art market, was always the kiss of death, right? You never wanted your prices to rise up and then plummet, but this is becoming like very commonplace in these markets. So these are people that will buy something, and then 10 minutes later they'll put it for 20 to 50% higher, right? And they'll do kind of this market building activity, and really, they don't seem to understand that there's people behind this work, and it has a material effect on their life, and these are people trying to express themselves creatively and develop a long-term life practice. They're just going where the hype is and where the hot market movement and action is.
Does this just go away? Like, is this completely a flash in the pan, or is this sort of the birthing pain of this market? Like what happens with NFTs long term? Because ringtones went away. Ringtones went away flat. Like they exist, not that many people use them anymore. Other things didn't go away flat.
Personally, I think that this is the new artistic medium of our generation, and it is amazing to be able to watch it in action. It's like when photography first came in or video first came in, and and they create those mediums and created art and storytelling, and were incredibly impactful on culture. And digital art is a new medium. It's one that can be programmatic. It's one that that can be dynamic and composable, and can take advantage of rendering, and it's just a fantastic medium for creativity. I don't think that's going away, and I think and because it's a fantastic medium, the ownership and collection of that creative record is not going to go away either. So I think we'll look back on this in 50, 100 years and say this was like, when you were around for the, with the original abstract impressionists, and it'll be a really cool thing. It's a cool time.
I agree with that too, but Colburn, what's your
thought? Look, I agree, and I think photography is the best analogy, because what this technology allows you to do is really cement the ephemeral, right? Digital information that just used to like pass and flow culturally, suddenly we're able to capture it, put a blockchain timestamp on it, and say this is like that permanent moment in time when this thing happens. And from there, instead of just kind of fading into like our forgotten digital refuse bin, it becomes an enshrined object, and there will be tremendous value creation around those enshrined objects that people continue to aggregate and build community around, that will be like cultural markers for a continued digital evolution.
Got it. Excellent. I completely agree with those comments. Any counterpoints? Anyone?
I was just going to add, I think, there's like it as a medium, and then there's also NFTs as like what it is historically. But I think also with like younger people, like 14 to 18, like they live in a whole like hyper visual digital existence, especially with COVID. And so for them, they're going to start choosing what is the visual content that makes me excited? What are the things that I want to share with my friends in this whole metaverse? And like, I'm so much more believing in something like Snapchat actually than like Instagram, or maybe not Twitter, but then Instagram, because it like provides that just like visual communication. like back and forth. And I think NFTs are building into that language. It's a different kind of language that is beyond me, but it's right there. And I can see it growing, I think.
That's fascinating, because I would agree with you. I'm a little blind to that visual communication language. I know that one or two generations beneath me started using emojis, and they are still heavily used, even even though those people are an older age now. And that now the visual language is really changing and becoming more involved, and the ability to communicate with 15 people at the same time is normal for a lot of people, and anyone who can't do it is almost being left in the dust. So it's a very, very interesting minute. I kind of wanted to I wanted to talk about the flow of digital art that has disappeared. There are these moments in time that I wish I could have captured at the time. There is a Saturday Night Live animated interstitial from the 90s that I wish I could capture, and have many times tried to go and buy from the people who created it, and you can't find it. The very first Sacha Baron Cohen product was a website which was like a sales ad for going to vacation in Turkey. And it was by far the funniest thing I ever saw on the internet. And I really want that website, but I can no longer have it. It's not in the Wayback Machine. There's no NFT. So these are some of the things that I think are potential new markets for NFTs. So I wanted to hear, kind of running down the line, who thinks of other potential new markets for NFTs? Because if we're talking about the beginning of a market, how does it grow? What are the big undiscovered opportunities here?
Yeah, look, this market will really take off. I think when blockchain gaming and these kids understand that there is, transferability of the assets that they're acquiring in these games, whether it's something like a Fortnite skin, instead of just money into, the corporations that are producing these games, they will demand that they own the object, that they can take the object out of the game, that they can then resell it. And I think, NFTs in blockchain gaming will be that like broad adoption that is going to kind of lift the whole market and legitimize it.
Gaming, got it. Gaming, objects from games. It's fascinating to me because technically cryptocurrencies came from Second Life and from gaming, where the idea, somebody had the idea, wow, we can take this fake money and trade it with real money.
Yeah,
huge idea if you think about it.
It was World of Warcraft gold.
Yeah,
and that's what Brock Pierce was doing, was having people mine for this gold and then selling it to people in the US.
Yep. We love Brock. Always wanted to be the banker. Like whenever there was a new digital platform, oh, I'll be the bank. I'm happy to be the bank. Okay, so what about shark jump moments? Does anyone have any good shark jump moments for the NFT market or the NFT space?
Can you define
shark
that?
jump moments are when in the famous television series, I'm about to say Welcome Back, Kotter, but what I mean is Happy Days. In the famous television series Happy Days, Henry Winkler, playing the Fonz, goes to Hawaii with somebody else's family. So that was kind of hard to believe to begin with. And then somehow Henry Winkler is seen water skiing on two skis wearing the Fonz jacket, the leather jacket, which you would never actually wear a leather jacket in salt water if you owned one. And he is seen jumping over a shark, a moment that is almost impossible, would never happen in reality. And that was the moment that Happy Days, a very successful franchise, died. So what are some kind of moments like that in the NFT space? Like completely ridiculous, insane, it should never have been made into an NFT moments.
Like the NFT has to be redefined, then you know,
I
there's.
think,
Go ahead.
oh, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't hear you. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, you know, I saw recently there was, I think it's been happening for a while. There was a woman who put an NFT of like her just half her arm and was like, if you buy this token, you can decide what I tattoo here. You know, like this body ownership. I mean, and then there was like, I hope it's not too taboo, but Max Osiris's like pubes as like different NFTs. Like there's some really like ridiculous body NFT interaction, which I kind of find awesome, to be honest. But I don't know if that's a moment or if it's just happening. And I'm just picking up trails of it. In terms of like moments where actually someone does that, I think Colby could speak to that history.
I mean, it's hard, right? Because generally, like the more stupid or weird thing that you do, the more you're embraced.
Right.
Right. So it's always been a space for like these oddballs and these outcasts and the weirdest of ideas. And people like really forget that this art market, this NFT art market, was kind of like largely built on memes. And just like it was all about a playful, creative, fun spirit. So I think in even the most like absurd instances, it's generally the community is willing to embrace that. I think what people don't embrace are things that just like find itself to be incredibly derivative, like the, you know, like a bald, naked rendering of a 3D woman. You know, it's like, it's when people like just use the, you know, the common models where it's like, okay, or like a spaceman or a palm tree, or, right, you know, it becomes a trope of being in the middle. You want to be on the extreme in these markets.
Got it. You've crushed my question. It's basically I now have to go back and see whether the Fawn's shark jump episode is the most watched episode on Happy Days. Probably it is.
What about just the sheer saturation of just, you know, junk? You know, pigs to the trough, NFTs, dollar signs in the eyes, everybody goes. Doesn't that have some effect long term on just the medium, the platform itself, like burning out?
I think it's just irrelevant. You know what I mean? Like anything that doesn't go to the extremes that Colborn mentioned, and it just isn't interesting and nobody buys it. You know, only the cool stuff is going to come up.
Yeah.
So well, I think that's what we'll have to see. I mean, there's clearly a mania. There's an oversaturation of NFTs being produced. Everyone's kind of running for this money, and it could play out that the good stuff, you know, stays valuable, and all the noise just gets ignored as noise. That would be the best outcome. The other jump the shark moment is, you know, is that this mania results in a crash across the board, and then we have an NFT winter, just as we had a crypto winter over the last few years.
Yeah,
that would be too bad. I think that may be likely, but I don't think that'll be the death. I think it'll just be a winter, and there will be a spring, and the good stuff will, you know, have deep roots and regrow when that spring comes.
That's a great way for us to end. If there are no other comments, I'm going to try to bring this to a close at the end of the hour. And I completely agree with Mark's comment, given that we've all seen it happen in crypto, where it just comes back and the tree's just stronger every time. And no matter how many crypto haters there are, be it the most successful investor in the country and world or anyone else, it just keeps coming back stronger and nobody can stop it. And I think that's probably what's going to happen here, because it's a very solid technology, and there will be shark jump moments and and all kinds of insanity, but it's really the moment when the new digital world kind of launches. We've all known that there would be this opportunity in this moment, but now we really have a platform whereby we see why is crypto important to the internet. And it's important because it creates uniqueness, and NFTs show that. And that's what's different from the prior internet. Thank you very much for your involvement in this panel. I thought it was amazing. I learned a lot from it, and I think it's a wonderful piece of work as far as panels go. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank all of you.
Thank you.
Illustrious group.
Oh, big fan of Devo.
Me too.
Amen.
Thanks, everybody. Fantastic panel.